So welcome everybody. As I was introduced, I'm Sauer-Klein. I'm the founder of the Movement Blueprint. I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. And I'm hoping that you came here not only to learn about how I started the global movement and how one can start a global movement, but how you can also start a global movement. And so that's the premise that we're going to be working on today, that everybody in here is capable of and has the potential of stepping forward in a huge way in their leadership and creating massive change in the world. So are you guys ready to step forward into that?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to ask you to stand. And you can put down anything around you. And just stand so that you're near the people that are next to you. And if you're not next to somebody, then you can actually go across an aisle. So let's see if we can make like connections all the way across the aisles even. So if you guys want to step into the aisles, that's right. Awesome. Great. So just so that you're near some folks nearby, as much as you can. Okay, awesome. And then just take a comfortable stance with your feet hip width distance apart. And then close your eyes. And just allow your bones to settle in to an optimal resonance with gravity. So it takes the least amount of effort for you to stand. You can trust in your structure. Let all your muscles relax onto the bones. And then keeping your arms heavy by your sides, just let your arms rotate so that your palms face forward. And this is a gesture of receptivity, so feel that your whole front surface of your body is open. And breathing into these three major sensors in the front of your body: your belly, your heart, and your throat. Where you know, where you feel, and where you express. Just taking a deep breath, filling this whole front surface of your body so you can really experience the worthiness of your own being. And know that you are here for a purpose, a big purpose. Otherwise, you wouldn't still be here in a physical body. So your work is not yet done. There are great things ahead of you. And see if you can tune into that purpose. Maybe it's a big purpose, maybe it's a long-term purpose. Maybe it's a purpose for being in this room right now. So whatever it is that comes to you, see if you can just amplify that and know that it's enough for this moment. Why you are here. And you're going to let your hands slowly come together in front of your heart so your palms are touching one another. You're going to seal that purpose and seal that intention in. And then stay really focused on that purpose and that intention. I'll ask you to slowly open your eyes and find a steady gaze point in front of you. Somewhere that doesn't change. Keep that steady focus. You're going to slowly bring your weight onto your left leg and balance on one foot. And no matter what happens, even if it's hard to hold the balance, even if you have to put that foot down, hold your gaze. Hold the vision. Stay aligned with your purpose no matter what. Take another big breath in. And as you exhale, release your arms and release your foot down to the floor. Awesome. Okay, you ready for step 2? Okay, inhale, reach your arms all the way up to the sky. Reach up as far as you can. Great, and now find that purpose extending even far, far, far beyond you. And you're going to reach your arms out to the side and make connections with the people to your left and to your right as much as you possibly can. Wonderful. Now you're going to take a big breath in. Get your focus point, your gaze point again. And as you exhale, you're going to bring your weight onto your other leg. And balance. And see how it feels now to be balancing with all of us focused forward on our individual purposes, but connected together. And so feeling that mutual support, feeling that connection in the room, how much more powerful we are together than we are on our own. Take one big breath in, savor this feeling. As you exhale, release your arms, release your legs, and shake it out. And take a seat. All right. Wonderful. There's some more people coming in, so feel free to make your way in. There's some seats coming up. So while we're going to be talking today, I encourage you to just be present and be available for what's happening in the room as much as possible. If you want to take notes, you're of course free to do that. And if everyone can move in, I'm being asked to have everyone move in if you're in a seat so that it makes more room. Does that make sense? Okay. So there's more seats for people to come in. Awesome, thank you. So at the end of the presentation, there'll be a place for you to sign up with your email and get a PDF of this whole presentation. So if you don't want to take notes, it's all going to come to your email box. So you can just like relax and be present. If you want to take notes, still that's up to you. Okay, so how to start a global movement. How am I standing up here talking to you guys about this topic? Well, way back when, in 2003, this is 10, 11 years ago, I met my friend Jason Niemer, and we co-founded Acroyoga together in San Francisco. And our office originally was Dolores Park, and that is me with crazy messy dreadlocks, if you're wondering. So you might ask, what is Acroyoga? How many people in here have heard of Acroyoga before? Awesome, a lot of you. So if you haven't heard of it before, it is a combination of yoga, acrobatics, and Thai massage that cultivates trust, community, and playfulness. And while it started with just two of us playing in a park, it has now become a global movement with hundreds of thousands of practitioners on 6 continents. And I've had the pleasure and the honor of training tens of thousands of students and certifying over 250 teachers myself. So it's been amazing. And you might ask, well, how did we get from 2 people playing in the park to this global movement? And we didn't have a lot of experience or no experience building movements. We hardly had any experience building businesses. And we were young, and we didn't have a lot of money to funnel into it. What we did have was passion, perseverance, follow through, vision, and kind of obsessive compulsive disorder, probably. It's like the compulsion to do something, and I'm sure many of you who are entrepreneurs or creating your own way in the world, it's like you don't have a choice. It's something you have to do. There's no other option. So we poured all of our lifeblood and our energy into this project for the past 10 years, and it's been really phenomenal. And in the past couple years, I got to a point where I realized, as amazing as this is, as much as I've enjoyed it, as much as I've learned from it, and as big as it's gotten, there's something else that I'm supposed to be doing. And that was really radical and terrifying, because this was the career that I've known for 10 years. So my family, my community, my students, my teachers, my livelihood, my career, everything. So it was really terrifying to consider what happens if I step outside of that container. And as I've been in that process, I remembered this quote from my mom, which is, "The mark of a good parent is to raise an independent child." And I think she's done kind of too good of a job at this with me. I think she's a little bit sad. I'm like, bye mom, see you later. I'm going to go travel around the world. So the same is really true for raising a movement. And as I realized that there was something else I needed to be doing, it really gave me even more perspective on how do I feed this organization and this movement so that it can carry on without me. And as I've now left, and I'm looking back and I'm seeing it's flourishing. It's doing really well. It's continuing to expand and to grow. And that to me says I've done a really good job of delegating and empowering other people to step forward as leaders and to carry this thing forward, because really what a movement is a team of leaders. It's everyone taking responsibility. It's everyone contributing. It's everyone participating. It's everyone taking responsibility for creating the envisioned reality that we're moving towards together. So I feel really good about that. So in the interim, it's been like, well, what am I doing now, and what's the next step? Thus has been born the Movement Blueprint. Wow! Yay! Which is a step-by-step strategic system designed to take you from the inception of your method to its profound and scalable impact. Big stuff. It's been fun. It's really fun and exciting to be able to take what was a very organic process, something that was just happening, and we were riding this big wave, and now to look back on it and say, okay, what are the systems that I can put in place and offer to people like you so that you can build something magnificent as an offering to the world? So there are 5 steps to this system, and we're going to spend time, I'll go over all 5, today, but we're going to spend the most amount of time on step 1 because we all must start from the beginning, and this conversation is about how to start moving from the ground up. So we're going to start from ground level, which is step 1, know your value. And we'll talk about why that's important. Step 2 is clarify your message. Step 3, master your model. Step 4, create your training program. And step 5, impact the world. So we're going to start with step 1, know your value. And at the beginning when we were standing and just like receiving the worthiness of your being, for how many people was that really easy? Oh yeah, I'm totally worthy. For how many people was that a little challenging? Like, what does that even mean? Receiving worthiness? My boyfriend's like, yeah, that's kind of weird. So it's a really important thing to answer this question, who am I? And even more than who am I to blah, 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 but it's who am I not? So we think like, oh, how can I be a global movement leader? Well, I can tell you that I did not set out to do that. That was not my intention, and I kind of, if you do what you love and it's magnetic enough to a lot of people, all of a sudden you're going to kind of look behind and be like, oh my God, there's a lot of people back there who are like looking at me for leadership. So it oftentimes finds you without you intending it if you're really in your path and in your purpose. So this question of who am I, one specific example, years ago when I was 28, we were teaching at the Asian Yoga Conference in Hong Kong where everything is like super big and super bold. And I was by far the youngest faculty member. And I'm standing next to all the yoga greats like Shiva Ray and Sean Thorne and David Swenson and Sharon Yen and David Life, if those names mean anything to you. They're the people at the top of their field. And it was one of the first big conferences we ever taught at. And these people have been teaching longer than I've been alive. And I was like, what am I doing here? Like, does anybody know how I snuck in the back door to this thing? Like, it was a really interesting moment, but then I had to really step into, yeah, but we're offering something new, something fresh. We're pioneering the yoga frontier. We're helping to bring this practice even further forward and to help it evolve. And I could really stand in that and be like, I'm making a unique contribution that matters. And it's not Iyengar and it's not Ashtanga, but it is what it is. It's Acroyoga, and it's about bringing people together and creating community. So that was really important for me to come to terms with that. So for you guys, we're going to have you explore your value and to really be able to step powerfully into that. And the first question that we're going to discover and talk about is, how have you transformed a significant challenge in your life into one of your greatest gifts? This is really important because you have to own your past, right? We've all walked a really unique path in life to arrive where we are now, and to really bring awareness to that, like what's happened to me, how have I worked through that is really important. And then you get to experience the empowerment of transforming obstacles into opportunities. So if you're stepping into a leadership role and you want to be a role model and example for other people, part of it is learning how to, with grace, deal with challenges because they will come at you no matter what. Especially the more you step forward and the more that you offer and the more people are magnetized to you, it's going to be even more and more important that you handle those waves really well and really gracefully. And then you have gratitude for the contrast. Do the really hard things, and what did they give birth to? That's a benefit to you and to others. So for me, as an example, I grew up as an only child in New York City, like in Manhattan, on the 14th floor in a one-bedroom apartment. And I was really lonely. I felt really isolated. I spent a lot of time alone. I'm with my parents who are wonderful, amazing people, but also like that adult-child dichotomy, and with babysitters. And I really craved community so much. I had this whole fantasy of having like a big farmhouse with brothers and sisters and people coming by all the time. That was what I really craved and yearned for. And then in my adulthood, boom, there comes Acroyoga. It's all about play and partnership and fun and community and togetherness. And had I not had that experience and that upbringing, I probably wouldn't have birthed that gift into the world. So it's a way for me of having appreciation for it. That was my experience. That's how I've transmuted it into something that has been incredibly fulfilling for me. And I've given that gift to a lot of people through this practice. So what you're going to have an opportunity to do is get into groups of 3, because 3 is the smallest community. So when we have 1, we're alone. We have 2, we have a partner. We have 3, we have community. And you're going to have 1 minute. It's a short amount of time, so it's about being really succinct and getting right to the point of looking at what's a challenge that you've transformed in your life that you can feel really good about right now. If you can do this in terms of thinking about your professional life, what you do right now, it's really valuable on that level. Like oftentimes the holistic health coach is someone who had a very sick childhood, or the singer is someone who's really shy and didn't speak very much as a child. So think about that arc for you. What is the meaning in what you're doing now that you've benefited from a struggle in your life? Everybody has maybe a clue. If you're not sure, listen to the other people first, and then yours afterwards. So teams of 3, I'm going to be ringing these bells and try to keep you on time. So we're going to do 2 more questions, and we're going to answer them together. And the next one is, what current cultural norm do you want to make absurd? So this one is where you get to stand on your soapbox and be the activist and say, you've looked at your personal past and you've mined some really good gems out of that. And now you're looking at the universal present. So now we're looking a little bit more broader, not only me and my life, but what is going on culturally. And what is something that we consider to be normal and we consider to be okay? It's not okay. It doesn't need to be that way. Yeah, I'm sure you probably got a lot of things in your mind. And we're going to have a chance to talk about it. So that's a really good one. You could probably create a really long list in your mind, and it'll be good to focus on one. And then what you're going to do is, so that one is really, again, getting on the soapbox, accessing your dissatisfaction, figuring out what it is that you don't want. But don't get stuck there. This is the pitfall. Anger serves a purpose, contrast serves a purpose to launch you from what you do not want into what you do want. When you figure out what you do want, your job is to go unequivocally in the direction of what you do want. So it's like a lot of people spend this like, I don't want what I do, and I don't want what I do, but I don't, I don't, I don't. It's like you got to step fully into the I do. That's where the vision is born from. That's where the leadership comes in. Is going from point A to point B, right? So what current cultural norm do you want to make absurd? And then you're also going to answer, what future cultural norm do you want to establish? So now you know what is not cool, and now you know what I see, what I envision, and I'm going to hold that vision and hold that vision until that becomes reality. That's what leadership is seeing that which is not yet manifest and manifesting it. Right? Yes! Okay. Awesome. So as an example, these are again some Acroyoga photos, and through this practice I could really say that it was about a touch revolution for me in a lot of ways. You know, if babies are not touched, they die. Touch is not a privilege, it's a right. And how many of us get enough hugs every day? No, right? So to really be able to expand our sphere of intimacy, not just to our sexual partners or our husbands or wives or spouses, but to be able to go beyond that to our families, to our friends, to new people that we meet, to people in this conference, right? We started by making contact because it's so important, and then we realize we're all in it together. Right? There's not so much difference between us once I make that physical connection. It's flesh and blood and bone and spirit, same. So that's the touch revolution. So I'm seeing a world in which we hug more often. A hug replaces a handshake, where we're open, where we can put a hand on someone's shoulder, where we can really feel responsive and receptive to one another from a deep emotional place and be willing to make contact in a safe, sacred way. So that would be my 1 minute soapbox, right? It's what I don't want and the world that I want to see. So that's what you guys are going to be doing. You're going to be in your same groups of 3. So the same group you were just with. If you weren't in a group, please join one. You're better to be in a group of 2 than a group of 4, so that you have enough time. You're going to have 1 minute each again to share this current cultural norm you want to make absurd and the future cultural norm you want to establish. If you are already invested and passionate about something that you're doing right now professionally, it's great to put it in that context. What is the medium that you're doing? How is it turning this cultural norm upside down? If that's not clear for you yet, pick a cause that's really important to you. Maybe it's ending world hunger or saving the whales or something that you're really passionate about, and you can speak about that cultural norm and how you're flipping it. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay, you are off. 1 minute each. You're going to share both of these questions in 1 minute. So now what you've got to figure out is how will your movement be the agent of change that creates that cultural shift?
1 minute, go.
new model that makes the existing model obsolete, like in circular, right? So it's leave the existing reality behind. Like there's the mainframe, we all participate in that to some degree, that has no bearing on whatever it is that you actually want to create. There are many, many layers of reality happening simultaneously, so you just have to figure out how is your movement, when people participate in it, when they engage with it, how is that going to be creating that subculture, that sub-reality that you want to be manifesting. Step 2, clarify your message. So there's 3 main components to clarify your message. The first one is make your message meaningful. So you're going to identify 3 core values that are like the pillars of your movement. And this is, these core values, they might seem kind of mundane on their own, but when you place these 3 things together, they can be the foundation of a revolutionary culture. The second step is to make your message memorable so that you're creating stickiness. So it's how does your products, your programs, your offerings, the naming, thematically all tie back into these 3 core values and provide a call to action that people are going to rally around, that they're going to remember, and that they're going to want to share. And the third aspect is make it fun to share. So you want people to go out there, and it's not you with a bullhorn, but it's you with a bullhorn to other people with bullhorns to other people with bullhorns, so that this thing is spreading virally on its own because people enjoy bringing new people in. A movement survives and thrives off of new people joining and getting turned on and saying, yes, I want to be a part of that, and yes, I feel included in that. So how wide of a welcome can you give new people to come in and say, I want to be a part of this, and I belong here. So this is tribal belonging also exists in this area. So like people who practice acroyoga, they call themselves acroyogis, right? There's like some real belonging there. Anybody here been to Burning Man? What do people who go to Burning Man call themselves? Burners, right? Okay. So this is, you'll see why that's relevant soon. So acroyoga's 3 core values. The first one is trust. And in a pose like that, you can see why that's really important. And this is again revolutionary because we walk around, generally our default is distrust. We might not think that, we might not want to admit that, but if you're walking down a city street and someone comes up to you, it's more here than here, right? So to actually walk around in the world with your default to be trust, to move forward rather than to move backward, to embrace rather than to contract, that's really revolutionary. And that's what we do in acroyoga. When you meet people, it's not just a handshake, it's not just a hug. It's like, let's fly, let's play, let me bounce you on my feet and take your life into my hands. and that creates a lot of intimacy really fast, right? Because you're risking, and that creates a really big bond of trust. Second value is playfulness. So how many of you are playing as much as you'd like to? All right, yay, awesome. You should teach a workshop. So playfulness is really important, right? As adults, we often lose that. There's a great George Bernard Shaw quote that says, we don't grow old because we stop playing. We don't stop playing because we grow old because we stop playing. So good. And so to bring play back into our adult lives, it brings this sense of childlike wonder and amazement and discovery and amazingness. It's just a really magical way to be in the world, and we oftentimes lose that as an adult. And the last core value is really around community, and this is about mutual support. It's about together we are far more powerful than we ever are alone. And it's about embracing that, and the trust and the playfulness definitely helps to build that sense of community and connection. So to give you one more example that we kind of alluded to, Burning Man. Now Burning Man has 10 major guiding principles that they speak of, but I boil it down to the 3 that I feel are most obvious. First one being leave no trace, which is about I'm in something that's bigger than me, the earth, the environment, it's important. And it's also about impermanence, right? Burning Man, if you haven't been or don't know it, it's a festival, like a city that erupts in Nevada in the desert for a week every August and then disappears. And so it's about the impermanence of life and the beauty of that. There's the gifting economy, so you can't buy or sell anything there. There's no money on the playa, which is the desert itself. And so that creates an atmosphere of generosity and reciprocity, right? Where it's like, oh, whatever you need, I'll give it to you, and you're taken care of, and we're all in this together. Fairly different And then you have radical self-expression. So it's really about artistry. It's about being whoever it is that you want to be and having that place to fully express yourself. As I told you, I grew up in New York City, and the first time I went to Burning Man, even though I grew up in New York where anything goes, I felt more free than I'd ever felt my whole life. Like the minute I stepped onto the playa. So I have a lot of respect for Burning Man and the culture that has erupted from those core values. So step 3 is master your model. This is like the biggest, most amorphous step in the 5 steps. This is the one that probably takes a number of years because there's 3 main components here. So the first one is systemizing your methodology. So for your movement, this practice and method, whatever it is that you're offering, really making that systematic and codifying it so that it can be easily replicable with integrity every time. That takes a while. A lot of these processes, they're trial and error, it's fine-tuning, it's doing it over and over and over again. What is it, like 10,000 hours to become a master or something? So this is where you're putting in the bulk of your time. Secondly, you are honing your delivery or honing your presentation. If you're going to be a leader that's going to engage thousands of people, millions of people, how do you deliver that in a compelling way that people are going to feel engaged and inspired, they're going to want to contribute, and they're going to want to follow your leadership? And that's a really important piece of how you share the information in a really compelling way. And I have a program called Rock the Room that addresses that. I'll talk about that later, and it's really fun. And so the last part of this master your model is really around finding a sustainable business model for success. So we do live in a capitalist society. We are in that kind of an economic mainframe. So my perspective is the most important thing is your value. The most important thing is your movement. The most important thing is getting it out there. And you can't do that as efficiently if you're coming from a place of depletion and scarcity. If you can find a way to make it sustainable, to make it financially viable, it's going to be a lot more easier and fun and enjoyable for you to share that. And it makes it a better model to offer other people to be able to carry it forward also. So I'll show you a little bit of Acroyoga's business model. Again, this was not intentional. From the beginning, these are structures that I'm now aware of that I can kind of put over what was there. So generally you have, as a general business model with your products and services, your intro at the bottom, which is free or low cost, one-to-many. You can reach a lot of people that way with very low risk. You have your core products, which is the bulk of your offering. It's the bulk of your income probably. And then your premium, which is like your VIP offering. It's more expensive, it's more investment of time and energy. So for us, the intro level are classes, workshops, and jams. Jams are often free in the park, and that's where a lot of people actually get introduced to Acroyoga. It's like, what are they doing? Core products are the immersions. So these are 5-day programs that we developed. And these 5-day immersions became prerequisites for the teacher trainings. So people had to do the immersions to even apply to come to the teacher training. And then they do the teacher trainings themselves. And now they're certified to go out there and teach Acroyoga. Now how this works is, as a movement model, is that it's an auto-replenishing cycle. So when you certify the teachers, now they're going out as independent contractors of their own volition, and their own excitement, and they're going out there and they're teaching this intro level. They're teaching the classes, the workshops, and the jams that are generating more people to come to the immersions, that are generating more people to come to the teacher trainings, that are generating more teachers and students for that first level. So that first level gets really, really wide. Right? You want that to be really wide and really long because you've got to access as many people as possible on that basic level to get them turned on to what you're doing. Yeah? You guys okay? All right. Okay. So I'm going to move on to step 4, which is create your training program. And this is where you exponentially multiply your reach by training other people to carry your message forward. Now there's a lot of ways to multiply your message. As you all know, internet, social media, all of those things, they're valuable and they're viable. And there's nothing more valuable than a person-to-person transmission. And I think that's why you all paid X amount of money to be here in this room. Not to be at home, not to be reading about the conference, not to be watching the live stream, but to be here in person, because live events and live people and person-to-person in the moment connection is the most valuable thing we have. And when someone who's standing in front of you is the living embodiment of the essence of the movement, you get it right away. Right? right? I don't need to tell you a lot. You feel it because you are a sixth-dimensional being. So creating your training program in Acroyoga, this was like my favorite thing in the teacher trainings because they're so beautiful. You know, you get people for 2.5 weeks in this bubble. They're going really deep. They're having a transformative process. There's nowhere to go. You know, you can't escape and be like, oh, I'll deal with that at some other time. It's really a transformative process, and everyone is deeply committed, and the bonds that happen there are beyond anything I've seen anywhere else. So it's really, really powerful to give your practice away and let other people carry it, because what happens if you die tomorrow? What you worked so hard for, does it also die? Or does it carry forward? Does it have a life of its own? And that's what empowering these torchbearers will do for you and for the movement itself. Step 5 is impacting the world. So it's making it easy for new people to find you and to join your movement. And you can do this through social media, TV, radio, television, TV twice, magazines, interviews. You can do it through products. You can do it through books and DVDs and online courses. You can do it through teaching, public speaking, and teaching events like conferences and festivals, like this conference. Like this festival I was teaching at is called Wanderlust. If any of you have heard of Wanderlust, Wanderlust, awesome. It's really fun. I call it yoga hedonism. That's it's a fun yoga party. And so when I go and I teach at the Wanderlust festivals, they pay me a flat fee. I show up. They've done all the advertising, all the arrangements, all the promotion. I'm being billed with people who are at the top of my field, so it gives me a certain amount of credibility. And they're bringing these students, so I get to show up and maybe have 200 people in a class, and I have 6 classes over the weekend. That's reaching a lot of people. So that's another way, again, kind of in that intro, in that bottom row, where you can really reach a lot of people very quickly. So we've gone through steps 1 through 5. So you kind of get a sense of the scope of it and the system. And really what I want to communicate is, having the blueprint and the interactive roadmap is really useful and helpful, but it's how you bring it to life that really matters. It's how you bring yourself forward. It's how you step forward as a leader. It's how you hold the container for thousands or millions of people that really makes this thing fly or not. So I wanted to go just a little bit into the leadership of a movement because it's different than the design of a movement. So the leadership of a movement, one of the main principles is, as its leader, you are actually its greatest servant. And you really, as you're building something big, you have to check yourself and say, is this movement serving me, or am I serving the movement? If you get into the place where the movement is serving you, it's very dangerous territory. Because then, and oftentimes this will happen in the yoga world, where there's the guru who will have a transgression. Maybe there's like an affair with a student, and the whole thing crumbles. Because there's such an egoic identification between the teacher and the leader and the practice and the movement itself that they're completely interwoven. So when Jason and I were building Acroyoga, we put ourselves back. So a lot of people didn't even know we were the co-founders. They didn't even know there were founders of Acroyoga. It was just this thing that was happening. And that was fairly intentional. We wanted to be in the background, and we wanted Acroyoga to be in the foreground. If you know how to listen, it will teach you everything you need to know. So do we know what's going to happen in the future? No. Do we know how we're going to deal with it? No. It's totally unpredictable. You have no idea. It's like riding a wild beast. Like you birds, and you're like, oh my God. So it's really about staying present moment to moment and listening to the spirit of the movement. What is it asking you to be or do or have or go or see or accomplish or meet certain people? You won't necessarily know that ahead of time. So every year when we would go on these tours and travel around and teach, sometimes we would go for like 5 or 6 months in a row. Travel, teach every week in different cities, different countries, crazy. We would listen to, where is the community need us? Where do we need to be? Where is it popping? Where is there need to be more guidance, more support? If we had tried to plan that a year out to be where we wanted to go in the world, like, hey, let's go to Tahiti, that's really nice. That wouldn't have served the movement. We really had to be listening and responding to what was being asked of us in that moment to continue to help it grow. Always take a high road. So on your path of leadership, you will have many forks in the road. And there's some forks that will offer you shortcuts and make things easier, faster, and that is almost never worth taking. Because what you're really building is something that has so much integrity that it can last for 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 years, that it can hold a container of 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, 10 million people. You got to be thinking on those terms. So the foundation that you set is really, really important. Every decision matters. So that's what always taking the high road. As an example, there was a time in the first 2 years of Acroyoga, we did 5 teacher trainings. And we turned out a lot of teachers. It was really fun and exciting. And then we were like, you know what? This is growing too fast. The intimacy of the community is really important. And we also wanted to up the caliber of the people coming to the trainings. We wanted to up the prerequisite, which is why we developed the immersion programs. And we knew we had to give the community some time to catch up to those requirements. And we wanted the teachers that were already existing to gel more with each other. So we took a year off of teacher trainings, and we went to our accountant's office and we told him our plan. And he was like, you guys are crazy. This is your biggest income stream. Like, how can we do that? We were like, well, this is what we need to do for the integrity of the practice in the community. So we'll find another way. And we did. So we made the emergence programs, and then we really boosted those and put those out into the world, and eventually that could be a really viable income source also. So where there's a will, there's a way. If you stay connected to your values and your integrity, most important thing. The delicate balance of holding on and letting go. So it's like a child. You give birth to a child, and sometimes you have to let that child fall. You have to let it try to walk, and you'll be surprised if you give it enough space, the resiliency of that child will get up, dust itself off, and keep right on going. So you've got to let it go and find its way in the world, and again, let it live its life beyond you. That's the point of giving birth to it, is to let it go eventually. So a few parting words. Always remember to do the best with the resources that you have. You don't need a lot of money, you don't need a lot of experience. What you need is passion, what you need is vision, what you need is dedication. What you need is to stay true to your integrity. So I learned a couple things on Photoshop. By no means am I a graphic designer, but for the first 5 years of Acroyoga, I was the primary graphic designer, and I did the best I could with the resources that I had. So this is a very early flyer from like 2005 that I whipped up. Really important that everyone matters. So while your vision is big and long, you also have to stay focused and connected to who is in front of you right now. And this workshop was taken, this picture was taken in a workshop way back when in the early days. There were 4 of us there teaching, and there were 4 students. And very easily you could say, this is not worth my time. I'm going to cancel it, we'll refund you, sorry, come to a workshop where there's more people. However, we were like, we're going to do it. And the 4 people who were at that workshop, one of them came to a retreat later that year, and the other 3 of them became teachers. And through those 3 people, hundreds, if not thousands, of people have been reached through this practice. So you never know who's in your path. Find mentors and a peer group. So a mentor is always really important because they're going to save you time and energy. They're going to help you prevent making costly mistakes that you might have made. And to really have that mentorship with someone who's walked the path that you're wanting to walk is so, so valuable. And then finding a peer group. So sometimes when you're an entrepreneur or you're a visionary, you're at the leading edge, you're like at the frontier. It can be a really lonely place. And I experienced that myself in Acroyoga. Like my whole thing was about building community, and yet I felt separate from that community. So it's important to find yourself connected to other leaders who are in a similar place or on a similar journey, because there's so much support there, and it's so valuable, and you need a place where you can be vulnerable and scared and unsure and figuring it out together.
Can I just ask you a question on
numbers? Yeah.
How many would you say is too many, or not enough? I mean, it's a really special role, but also you're kind of doing that as well.
Less is more. I'll just leave it at that. Lastly, do your inner work to keep up with who the movement is asking you to become. Or you're going to hold a big container for something that's really important, that you're engaging with a lot of people. So you really got to be able to walk your talk, and there is no spiritually transformative transformative process that I've ever experienced, like being at the helm of something like this. You know, relationships are incredibly transformative. Being an entrepreneur is incredibly transformative. Being a parent is incredibly transformative. Leading a movement, it will take